Yes, yes, yes. I managed to actually run down to Australia and to knock on Jenny's door. Let me see if you are live in the group. I need to refresh. Yes, we are. Yep. We are here, Jenny.
Hello, we're alive.
We're alive and live. Two things.
That's good. It's a good start.
I'm so happy to have you here tonight with us, and that you. What time is it where you are?
It's nearly 4:15 in the morning.
Have you been sleeping, or did you just get up really early?
Yeah, no, I got up early. Actually, I went to bed early, and I kept waking up for some strange reason, thinking I'll die if I sleep through this alarm. But no, I got up and made a cup of tea and made another cup of tea and sat and listened to your talk, which was just wonderful, on puppies, and a few really good quotes there, which was nice. So it's still dark here. I think it's about 10 degrees, which is nice.
Yeah, because it's winter where you are.
It is winter where we are at the moment, yes.
I'm getting hello from Italy, hello from Russia. There's a lot of, I love this. I met you the first time, I think 2 years ago, in Norway.
Yeah, I stayed at your training centre.
That's
Norman.
Yeah.
It's Norman.
He's traveling the world.
He does, yeah. He travels the world with me. I stayed at your training centre for, I don't know, 3 or 4 nights or something, for Julia Robertson, for the course, the Garland therapy course. And it was great. It was unreal. It was really cold. It wasn't cold inside the centre, but it was very cold outside. Yeah, that's when we first met.
Because you are crazy. You have been flying to Spain. How many times to attend to? Did you go dog trainer school?
Yeah.
How
10 times. 10
times. And you love flying?
No.
We talked about that.
Yeah, actually, I'm terrified of flying. I hate flying. I'm really nervous. Very nervous, in actual fact. Like, usually I cry when we take off, and then I sort of, relax, and then all of a sudden I go into panic and think, oh my God, I'm sitting in a tin can in the sky, and I, get panicky, and then I've got to try and get myself out of that again. But I think those things are really good, Lisbeth, because it makes you understand how dogs feel in lots of different situations. So, yeah, and then I was doing England as well at the end of that, because I started Amber's course. So I was sort of doing Spain and England. So, yeah.
You and Norman are well-travelled.
We are very well-travelled, so much so that Norman has his own Facebook page, Norman Goes to Norway. So you can go on there, guys, and have a look. And he, tells people about his travels.
We need to share that link afterwards. We need to share that. That would be great.
He's even been in cockpits. Actually, when we flew up to Christiansand, he was in the cockpit.
Really? Just because the plane was so small, or?
Wasn't that small. I mean, it was small, but it wasn't that small. No, the air hostesses just said that he could go up there, and
Oh, that's great.
Chatted up the Emirates air hostesses, and he has a good time.
Okay, so I don't know if you prepared that in your presentation, talking about yourself, or should I ask you now, because I know you.
I sort of have. I'm talking a little bit about my family. Dog family. So I mean, I that's pretty well it, unless you want to know a little bit about my business, what I do.
We would.
Sure. Okay, so I have two businesses, the Complete Pet Company, and the Complete Pet Company I created 18 years ago. I've been feeding raw dog food for about 25 years, and I started manufacturing a raw dog food commercially. And so the Complete Pet Company, that's what we do. We make a food called the Complete Meal for cats and dogs. And it's pretty special because I'm very passionate about animal rights, sometimes too passionate for people around me. And so the meats that I use are non-factory farmed. So we don't use any intense farmed meats at all. And we sell all natural products there. So there's no chemicals in the Complete Pet Company at all. And then I have another business called Complete Canine Communication. And that's working with dogs, and I run a lot of workshops and talks and classes. I travel a lot so that I can learn a lot more, because here in Australia, we're like very Americanized, I guess you would say. And there's a lot of cutting edge information coming out of Europe. So for me, if I want to learn and grow, which we are constantly doing, then I have to travel to Europe. So that's what I do. So I have the two businesses, and that's my life. I rescue anything that has feathers or legs, not humans, but anything else. And I'm just passionate about animals and animal rights, all animals, not just dogs, all animals. Yeah, that's me.
Oh, we are so lucky to have you here, really. Okay, so I'm going to show the PowerPoint on screen, and you can hear Jenny and see the PowerPoint, and both of us will be back for a little chat later. I will do as I normally do. I will have a look at the comments. Any questions, please write them during her talk, and I will ask them to Jenny when she's finished with her PowerPoint presentation. Okay, let's put the PowerPoint up on screen. Just a second. I'm gone. You are gone, but we can hear you.
Okay. All right. So my first slide here is my beautiful family. And these are my dogs. So they're all second, third, fourth hand dogs. And we have the two greyhounds. So we've got Dallas. And I love that photo because when we got Mona Lisa, which is the greyhound beside him, he was so excited. And so I took that shot, and he's a real character, Dallas. So then we have Mona Lisa, and she's 6 years of age. She's the newest addition to our family. And we have beautiful Jet down the bottom there, our Great Dane. And Jet is 12 years old, which is pretty amazing for a Great Dane, as you probably are aware. And then we have up the top our cheeky girl, Granny May, who's 3 years of age, and she's been with us since she was 4.5, 5 months of age. And we have Douglas, who's 2.5. He's the baby of the family. Those two white dogs we have affectionately named the Gladiators. It was a girlfriend of mine, Barbara, who said they look like gladiators. They just bring us so much joy every day. They all sort of came with different problems, but they're fantastic. And the two breeds that you see, the two white breeds, they're what we call bull Arabs here in Australia. I'm not quite sure whether anybody is familiar with that term, but it was a breed that was sort of bred in the 70s here in Australia for pig hunting. Not something I agree with. So they're very big, powerful dogs, and they usually crossed things like bull terriers, German short-haired pointers, the greyhound, but we also see things like Great Dane, Mastiffs, and Dobermans in there as well. So they sort of breed them for speed, scent, sight, determination, and strength. It's not a registered breed, and so they are extremely powerful, and they're bred to go in there, find the pig, hunt the pig down, and hold them. It's not a nice thing to do, but that's what these guys were bred for. I should also mention here another member of my family, which is Graham. And this photo was actually taken in the fjords in Norway. He doesn't normally dress like this in Australia, but and he's got Norman there. You can see Norman sitting down on the pole. And Graham is an imperative part of this family, because with him, it means that I can travel and do the work that I do and the study that I do. And he looks after the dogs and, excuse me, keeps the home fires burning. So he loves being at home with the doggies. He has a great relationship with them. So this is where I come from. Just a very quick slide for you all, because, you know, some of you may have been to Australia, but a lot of people haven't. And, you know, you get asked a lot of questions. So I live down here. You can probably see my cursor where the emu is, Brisbane. I just live outside of Brisbane in the mountains. So it's sort of in the tropical part of Queensland, Australia. And I've just put on the side there, we've got 25.5 million people in this country. It is huge, and a lot of people don't realise how big Australia is. So I just did a little comparison there. So 7.5 million square kilometres for Australia. And Norway, you can see the size of Norway there. And, of course, the US down the bottom, 9.8 million square kilometres. So you can see it is a huge country. It's classified as desert or semi-desert, and we also have tropical as well. So we have rainy and dry seasons. And Australia is affected by a lot of different things. So we have extensive drought here, which we've been going through for a very long time, which is really, really sad. There's just no feed. We have wet periods. We have dust storms. Tornadoes, cyclones, we have massive heat waves here, and of course you'd all be aware of the horrific bushfires that swept Australia earlier, and we have frosts, and of course at the moment we have COVID-19, so I thought I'd add that one in there as well. Our temperatures exceed 30 degrees in certain places. It's very difficult to sort of tell you the temperatures because they vary from state to state, and in winter, now, the word I put there is de-seed, which is not actually a word, but I quite like it, and can be, you know, below 5 degrees. So the temperatures are, you know, all over the place here. And, of course, we have a lot of amazing animals here that you don't see throughout the world. And when I put this map up, I thought it was quite interesting because there's one animal on there, one animal that we have in Australia that's missing, and that's our incredible native dingo. Obviously, we don't see those just walking around the streets, you know, in our suburbs and places. And they are hunted, unfortunately. They've got a really bad name in here in Australia, and, you know, there are organisations trying to protect them. It's very, very sad, very much like the story of the wolf. So that's our native dog, the dingo. And I was lucky enough to go and spend some time with some that came from Fraser Island that were put through like a rescue, I guess you would say, like a sanctuary. And I went and could sit in the area with them just quietly and watch their behaviour and document it. And that was quite interesting, which is obviously the same sort of information that they give as a normal canine. Okay, so I said a little bit at the beginning about working in the pet industry. I've done that for over 20 sort of odd years, and in that time I've witnessed some incredibly sad stories and also some incredibly joyous experiences as well. These are my two companies, Complete Canine Communication, and you might notice inside of that I've put the future of dog training, and there's a very good reason for that. I really have a problem with the word dog trainer. When I think of dog trainer, I think of conjuring up, you know, going to obedience and making dogs sit, stay, and all those things that we tend to do through obedience. And it never set well with me. So for years, I've been on this mission to find a better word. And of course, talking to Turid one day, and she said, "You are the future of dog training. That's what we are, the future of dog training." So I went, aha. So that's where that term came from. So I popped that inside the logo. Both of these logos are actually a Great Dane of mine called Simba that we turned into the logo. And he was a very special dog. He was my first Great Dane. And of course, I am also the Australian country representative for Australian, the Pet Dog Trainers of Europe. So I'm pretty proud of that. That happened just recently. So we do have a Facebook page of them as well. So when Lisbeth asked me to do a presentation on a topic I was passionate about, I got to thinking, for me, there's really not one topic that stands out. So I sort of thought to myself that everything about the dog is important. So I decided to present the whole dog, the complete dog. People have had dogs for centuries and for many years, for many reasons. Some just enjoy them for company. Others have them for competition, herding. We've got working dogs, so guarding and hunting, assistance dogs. We've got tracking dogs, entertainment, and there's so many other reasons that people have dogs. And one of the things that we know is dogs are very forgiving and love nothing more than to please us. And I find it really odd that we as humans call them man's best friend, when in actual fact we seem to be the one threat, the one and only threat to the dog, the human. We take advantage of their forgiving nature, surprising talents, and the ability to do whatever it is that we want them to do. We've been, and I always say to people that we've been given this incredible opportunity to share our home with dogs, but it doesn't give us the right to abuse that privilege, which I think we tend to do a little bit with dogs and, are not aware of. But it does give us the opportunity to understand and care for the dog. And remember always that our attitude will reflect on how dogs live, behave, and thrive. So I like definitions, and the definition of the word complete means to have all the necessary or appropriate parts or steps in place. So that's why this talk is about the complete dog. So I've broken it down into steps, and the first one being food. So I've always been very passionate about food, as I mentioned, and I've looked at it as fuel to feed the motor. So when I'm talking to my customers, I always say it's like a motor vehicle. You can't put petrol in a diesel motor. It does not work. And I know that because I've actually done it. Not a great thing to do. So without the right fuel, the motor becomes sluggish, doesn't work properly, and eventually it breaks down. And it could even stop. Our dogs are scavenging carnivores. They're hunters. Their jaws and teeth are designed to crush and rip and tear. And one of the things that they require is protein. And it's quite interesting when you start thinking about protein, because you can get protein from an old leather boot, engine oil, you can get it from legumes, soy, and of course, kibble. But we're talking about high quality proteins that come from meat. And of course, when we're looking at that, like I said, we should always think about the animals that we're using to feed our dogs. They deserve a good life as well. So we should always, take into consideration where those animals have come from. So meat is really important to dogs. It has many roles. It builds and repairs muscle and body and tissue. It helps form new skin cells, healthy hair, and it assists to create body chemicals like hormones and enzymes that are needed for the body to function. It also provides energy and keeps the immune system strong. Dogs also need fat. That's very important in their diet. It helps the nerves and skin and coat and the immune function. And another thing that's very important is cartilage, and that's because it's a natural glucosamine. So we have all these products out there now, for glucosamine for joints. And of course, just feeding them a bone is a great thing to do. They also need a small amount of vegetables for roughage and nutrients, and your green leaf vegetables are fantastic because they are antioxidants and blood purifiers. So it's fantastic if you can pulp those down and use the juices and the fiber from that, because it is just so cleansing. They also need vitamins and minerals, and of course, like I mentioned, the bone, a beautiful, beautiful, juicy bone. Dogs don't tolerate starch, and they're unable to digest things like rice, pasta, and potatoes. So let's talk a little bit about our kibble. So kibble is very, very high in carbohydrates. It's high in salt and high in chemicals. And also we need to think about when kibble's made, it's probably sat in a warehouse for a considerable amount of time after it was made, and then it's shipped off all around the world. So here in Australia, we get kibble that's local, but we also get kibble from, different countries from around the world, like France. And then again, it can sit in warehouses, for example, in this country, and so it can be stored for quite a long period of time before it's sold. Can I just ask, because English is my language, I hope I'm not speaking too fast for some of you people that are not great at English. So, Lisbeth, just let me know if someone writes in there that I'm speaking too fast.
I will let you know. Sorry. It's perfectly everyone. Yeah. This one question before I forget. What was the name of the white dog they're discussing? Is it a bull Arab?
A bull Arab, BULLARAB, bull
Okay.
Arab. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
You can Google it. ask Google. Okay, so so that kibble, it can have an expiry date of 18 months. So whereas your raw frozen food, you can make it and freeze it, and the freezing is your preservative. So there's no, you're preserving it through freezing. So there's no, preservatives put into the food like kibble. And it's always really important with kibble to keep in the back of your mind that once you open a bag of kibble, that within minutes it can become somewhat of a chemical cocktail. Did you like that? That was pretty flash, I thought. So the fat that they use in kibble is used to preserve the contents as well as make it really palatable for the dog. But it will go rancid once it's exposed to oxygen. So, those of you that are feeding kibble, you really need to think about that fat as well as the chemicals that are in that food and what we're feeding to our dogs. But if you have absolutely no choice, and I know some of you do, sometimes it can be very hard to get good quality meat and you need to feed kibble, it's best to keep it in the freezer and also purchase very small bags. So I know it's probably cheaper to purchase big bags, but it takes quite a while to get through those bags. So you are better off getting smaller bags. So the moral to the story, I guess, is to feed what nature intended. So when we look at the carnivore, we look at the teeth, we look at the digestive system, they aren't supposed to be eating out of bags and those dry cooked bits of kibble. There's a great book I've just put down the bottom there, written by Steve Brown, and it's called Unlocking the Canine Ancestral Diet, and I think it's a really good book to grab and have a read of. There's some really interesting information in there. So I just wanted to have a quick look at the digestive system for you, if I could. Is this going to work? Yes. Okay. So like I said before, we just have to look at our dog, just physically even look at our dog and see how it's built. They're extremely powerful and they have a very short digestive system and a very acidic gut. And it should be nice and acidic because it can break down basically anything in its natural state. So just to have a look at how the digestive system works, the food passes through the esophagus to the stomach. And the stomach contains high levels of hydrochloric acid, enabling it to break down bones and meat. So that's why we can feed dogs bones and we should feed dogs bones. So once it's processed, it travels to the small intestine where the nutrients are extracted and delivered to other organs via the blood. So the next step is the large intestine, and what the small intestine doesn't absorb, the large intestine will eliminate through the rectum in the form of feces. And this whole process, if it's fed a raw diet, usually takes around 8 to 10 hours. And when they're fed a kibble diet, it can be sort of around 10 to 18 hours because basically the motor is having to work really hard to break down that food. And on that note, feces is really, really important because it will tell you a lot about what's going on within the body. So there's just a little bit on the acid stomach. Like I said, it can break down meat and bone and digestible material, and also it kills bacteria in the stomach. So we get a lot of people are really panicky about their dogs eating all sorts of weird stuff like rotten fish and goodness knows what, but that gut's designed to do that. Wild dogs wouldn't have survived as long as they have if that gut wasn't designed that way, whereas ours is more alkaline. Carbohydrates is a really big thing to think about, and dogs get their energy from fat and protein, not grains and legumes and pasta and things like that. Amylase is something that we don't talk about much, and this is a big difference between us and them. We need amylase the amylase enzyme in our digestive system to break down those simple sugars, energy. But dogs don't have that in their saliva, but they do have a little bit that excretes from the pancreas. So when we feed a correct diet of protein and fat, so a good raw diet, the body allows production of normal amounts of enzymes needed to digest the utilization. But when we start feeding them things that the body doesn't understand, then the burden becomes entirely on the pancreas and it makes it work even harder than it should, creating illness and disease. So it goes back to, like I said, you can't put petrol in a diesel motor. If you do, the motor will work for a while. It will work really, really, really hard to try and keep going, if it's a diesel motor and it's got petrol in it. But eventually the motor just can't deal with that because it's not what it's designed to do. And the other one I just put up there is regurgitation, which I find quite interesting. I get a lot of phone calls from people that say, my dog has regurgitated something, has vomited something and eaten it again. And I go, yeah, that's okay. Obviously, if they were doing it all the time and there were other things going on, I would say you need to see a vet. But it's really quite natural for dogs to regurgitate and spit food out. And I think it's a great thing because it's the body's way of saying, whoop, got to get that out, or they can be regurgitating to feed, obviously, young. But they normally will eat it again anyway, so I wouldn't worry too much about that. But it is something that people tend to worry about. Okay. So let's have a look at the second thing second basic need that we find is really important. Of course, it's water. It comes after food, or actually water should probably come before food. And we know that most dogs love water. And of course, over there in your parts of the world, there's lots of snow, and I believe they love that too. Mine have never seen snow. And we also know that dogs have an incredibly powerful olfactory system. And if they're left to their own devices, they would certainly smell contaminated water. But in our home, they have no choice. They have to drink the water that we put down in front of them. And of course, water is so much more than a cool drink. It's continually lost through normal activities, and it must be available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days of the year. Water should be cleaned and replaced daily, and it should be placed in a cool part of the house, and preferably in a stainless steel or ceramic bowl. Plastic tends to harbour bacteria, so a great little exercise for you to do is, if you are using a plastic bowl, next time you empty it out, put your head in there and have a little smell and run your fingers around the edge, and you'll probably find that it's quite stinky in there, and also it can be sort of quite slimy. So ceramic and stainless steel mean that you can just wash those out. So a little bit about what water does. It helps carry and move important nutrients in and around the body. It filters out toxins, contaminants and chemicals, and it also helps regulate body temperature. It lubricates joints and, of course, the spinal cord. And we know that drinking water before we go to bed at night lubricates our spinal cord. So no different for the doggies. And also, if the body becomes dehydrated, the organs such as the liver and the kidneys, they'll shut down. They'll begin to shut down. And it's quite interesting. Dogs, like us, they can go without food for several days, but certainly not water. They must have water. Also, the quality of water is important. I'm on tank water here, so we don't have any town water. And when I'm at work, we have filtered water for the dogs, so they actually quite enjoy it. And it's quite funny, if I put water out of a tap into a bowl for my dogs, they just won't drink it. They're so used to that beautiful, clean tank water or purified water. And I've just put up here for you that dogs will drink about 50 to 100 mils per kilo of body weight per day. That just gives you a rough estimate. I mean, I don't think you will need to go out and start, measuring how much your dogs are drinking. I work on approximately 7 mils per kilo per day. So for things like dogs with Cushing and those types of things, it's really important. You can, or kidney problems, you can start to monitor how much water they're drinking, and that's always really helpful for the vet. So every now and again, it doesn't hurt to do a little bit of homework and just find out how much your dog is drinking on a regular basis. So you'll find on a raw diet, they'll tend to drink a lot less than those dogs on kibble. Same as those cat people out there, because cats are desert dwellers. So, of course, they're getting 75% of their hydration through a kill. And when we feed kibble, of course, they've got to drink loads and loads and loads of water. And, of course, we see a lot of cats with kidney failure. If you do notice a big change in how much water that they're drinking, then certainly you need to have that checked by a veterinarian, and preferably one that understands a little bit about raw diets would be great. So when we go to the third basic need for dogs, shelter is very, very important. So I think it just goes without saying, like all animals, doesn't matter whether we're talking about birds or guinea pigs or chickens, they need to be protected from the weather. So the wind, the rain, the sun, the snow, the cold and the heat. And shelter must be comfortable, clean, safe and secure, and free of drought, warm and dry. And that sounds just like my house. So I think dogs belong inside. I guess that's not the case for a lot of people that have a lot of dogs, or working dogs or whatever it might be. But if not, one of the special things that we need to provide is protection from those elements. If your dog's not getting proper and sufficient shelter, it will not get proper and sufficient sleep, and other issues will follow on from that. And Lisbeth touched on that a little bit earlier, which I was quite pleased to see. So I just put this up, probably applies to countries like my own and those hotter countries. If your dog is outside during the day, and I've seen this over many years of visiting backyards where dogs just can't get away from the sun or the wind or the rain. And so we can do things outside to help dogs. So the top slide on your left-hand side is just an awning out over the back of the house that can provide beautiful shelter and shade for your dog, somewhere for them to lie outside. Down in the bottom left-hand side, you can build some sort of doesn't have to be as flashy as this one, but I thought it was pretty impressive, where the dog can go and they've got their own little awning outside to lie. But if it's cold and windy and wet and raining and they have nowhere else to go, you can put a beautiful bed in there with a nice bowl of water, and it's nice and comfortable for them. So that gives them sort of a little bit of shelter. Up in the top right-hand corner, I think these are a great idea. We have a lot of people that take dogs to the beach here in Australia, and it's very hot. And a lot of the time, they don't even think about the dogs having shelter. And, of course, they don't sweat like we sweat. So shelter is a great idea. So these umbrellas, they've got sides on them and they protect them from the weather. And the other problem we have here in Australia is dogs in cars. One of the things I found travelling through Europe is dogs over there spend a lot of time in cars, and when you're working with dogs and those sorts of things, they are in cars. Here in Australia, it's so hot, and it is against the law to leave dogs locked in cars. And so we can do things like in the back of this ute where we can have little awnings for them, and we could pop a bed in there and a nice bowl of water, and they have that nice shelter if they need to be left in the car for any period of time. And, of course, you can get those beautiful travel bowls, water bowls, and I have one in my car. So you can fill it up with water and you can travel and go over bumps and round corners and the water doesn't spill. They're just absolutely fantastic. They're called no-spill water bowls. So that's just talking about shelter. And just to look at the temperature up here, you can see that in 2019, we got temperatures up around that 49 degrees. So she's pretty hot. So Lisbeth touched on this, and some other people have as well. Sleep. It is absolutely critical. And yes, Lisbeth, I have to say I agree with you. No closed crates. So I don't know, maybe we can start some crazy cult where we can all really get out there and talk about that. So let's talk a little bit about sleep. It's critical for good health and happiness. Sleep deprivation changes everyone's outlook on life, and I know it certainly does mine. And sleep is really important because if we sleep well, we remember well. Dogs sleep for about 14 to 18 hours a day, and some even longer. And puppies and the elderly and the frail sleep for much longer. And I've noticed that in my guys, that my two old dogs, that are my 12-year-old dogs, especially my Dane, they spend a lot of time sleeping. Well, actually, the greyhound sleeps all the time. I think it's his favourite pastime. It's a bit of a joke in our house. Where's Dallas? On his bed. Okay, so they sleep in many, many different positions depending on how comfortable they are and the depth of sleep that they're in. So I've just put some pictures up here, and there's so many more positions. So they can sleep, with their head on top of their front feet, and they're usually not sleeping, they're just resting, ready for something that may come their way. They sleep on their side. They normally sleep like that when they're fully relaxed, and we'll talk a little bit about that. They also sleep curled up. And this position, it can be when they're cold or unsure, or maybe do they just feel comfortable sleeping that way. I don't know that we have to analyse anything, everything that sort of comes our way. I mean, some people sleep in weird positions as well. They can sleep stretched out with their legs flat and their belly to the floor, and that could possibly be for them to keep cool, or they're just designed to sleep that way. They can sleep upside down with their legs up a wall, and they also can sleep in your lap if it's comfortable, relaxing. And if they can do it, why not? I mean, let's, not worry about dogs being in our lap if that's what you want to do. Some sleep with a pillow and some sleep without. Some sleep with their head off the bed. And some dogs love to sleep with other dogs. And some dogs even move from dog to dog, especially puppies. They love that company and that social interaction. And so we noticed that with Granny May when she first came to live with us, that she was bed hopping all the time. It was lovely. She'd be with one dog for a little while and then off she'd go to another dog. So dogs sleep in weird positions and places if they have the choice. And it's also important to observe how your dog's sleeping. We've got Letty on here, who is a myotherapist, and we had Louisa earlier on that, would talk to you about looking at how dogs are sleeping and when their heads are off bed. Does that mean that they're in pain? Sometimes it could. Sometimes it's just comfortable. So it's great to observe these types of things. So again, more on sleep. Storing memory is really important, and it's important for us to understand that we all are continuously, while we're awake, storing information. So as we're moving around, it's like putting books into a library. We're storing all sorts of information like sounds, our feelings, smells, visuals, places we've been, and even individuals that we've met. If our brain is not capable of storing that information and having a good sleep, we're not going to remember anything the next day. So sleep is absolutely imperative. It's so, so important. And I'm just quickly going to touch on this because I don't want you to, I'm probably going to go a bit over time, I think, Lisbeth. I'm not sure what time we started, but I'll keep going. And so we can talk about REM sleep, which is rapid eye movement. And it's really, really easy to recognize. So you'll notice that the bodies will twitch. They make funny noises sometimes. They might do little barks or whinges or little howls. They may even move their legs, resembling that they're running. And it's interesting to understand that when they're in REM sleep, their brain is actually really, really active. It's probably more active than when they're awake. So it means that their brain can process and clean up information that's been stored over time, like defragging in your computer. So it's very, very active, and they normally will lie on their side. So it's quite interesting to watch your dogs. They go into REM quite quickly and out of REM quite quickly as well. So next time your dogs are lying on their side and flapping their legs around and making funny noises, you'll know that's what it is. But also never wake a sleeping dog. Never, ever wake a sleeping dog. It's really important. And then we have short wave sleep, and that's also quite easy to recognize. Normally, they'll be sort of curled up. Their muscles are very tight, and their brain is less active in this particular type of sleep, and their body is less relaxed, and they wake up easily from sleep. So they're more resting, sleeping. And they're aware of their surroundings. And those of you that live with a group of dogs will see that, there's always one dog that is resting, sleeping. So, ready to let everybody else know that something's going on and they all need to get involved. So as you can see, sleep is so important. And it's really important to provide different sleeping places for dogs. I usually recommend to my clients at least 4 beds per dog so they can get up and move to different places and spots and positions if they require, which is why we don't want to be locking dogs in crates. And like Lisbeth said, which I love, all we're doing is just storing dogs. I mean, it's crazy, just crazy. So give your dogs plenty of places to sleep. They're also what we call polyphasic sleepers or block sleepers, which means they spread their sleep out over 14 to 18 hours or 14 to 16 hours, depending how many hours your dog sleeps, more for puppies. And if you observe your dogs over a 24-hour period, and I've done this, you'll be absolutely amazed how much they get up and move around, change positions within the house. So I think it's really important to understand that lack of sleep leads to compromised health, and that leads to compromised behaviour. Another basic need is, of course, toileting. And in today's world, it's quite interesting because we have dogs locked in crates all day, living in environments that don't allow them to go to the toilet when they require, like apartments and mobile homes. We have a lot of those in Australia where people are moving around, and even houses that don't have access to the outside world during the day and night unless someone opens the door for them. So it's important for dogs to be able to relieve themselves when they need to. So we don't like to hold on, and neither do dogs. So having a dog door is a great idea that allows them to do outside. But if you can't have that, then maybe organising someone to come and let your dog out during the day. Now, when Anna Lil was over here and staying here, she was very impressed with my dog door. And I said to her, well, why can't you have one? And I'd never really thought about it. But of course, in somewhere like Norway, where it's very, very cold, the last thing you'd want is a cold breeze coming through a dog door. But I was looking at this little one over here on the right-hand side, which is why I put it up. What a wonderful idea. So you've got the actual dog door, but then they've built a second part with a door. And I was talking to Anna Lil about saying you could build some sort of a tunnel so you lock it out from the outside world so that you don't get that cold air coming through. So something to think about. Maybe someone here is a little bit, can design something that people could use, because I think dog doors are fantastic. We have one and our dogs have access 24/7. They can just come and go as they please, and they do. And the last thing we want to have is doggies with their legs crossed all day. That's just not fair to anybody. Also, during my IDTE training with Turid in Spain, we had to conduct a little bit of a pee study, and it was really, really interesting. So we had to monitor them over a 24-hour period and over, I think it was a 3-month period, and once a week. And it was fascinating. So I slept in the lounge room so that I could go outside with my torch and my stopwatch. And I found that my dogs were, their usual, regular toileting was during the day, was early in the morning, during the day, between midday and 3 p.m. And again, there was a late pee around 7 p.m. and sometimes even later. So you can see that dogs just can't hold on all day, neither can we. And again, not allowing dogs to go to the toilet, it can cause serious, serious health issues and emotional issues. And like I said, it's just not nice. Imagine if you couldn't go. Safety, very important. So another part of breaking down the basic needs of a dog. Dogs are really social animals and need to feel safe in their surroundings. If they don't feel safe and are in constant state of fear or threat, they're unable to develop mentally, as all their energy goes into trying to cope with what's put in front of them at any particular given time. So you can see here, which is very true, weeds and flowers too. Weeds are flowers too once you get to know them. So we all need to feel safe in our surroundings, and continuous fear, like I said, will lead to compromised health and behaviour. And our dogs need to know that they can rely on us. And it's really important to understand that if your dog is uncomfortable in a situation, that we think about what we can do. Either we move away from that situation, or we remove what's causing them the discomfort in the first place. We also have to look at safety in the home. So things inside the home, in the environment, like stairs and floors, are really important. Gates, making sure that gates are safe and lock. Swimming pools, I'm not sure about overseas, but we do have cases here in Australia where you hear that dogs have drowned in swimming pools. They've got into them, and of course they can't get out of them. We have a swimming pool here. Our dogs love it in the summer, but those locks on those gates are really good, and those dogs are never ever in that swimming pool without one of us here. Also, safety in cars, safety around inedible foods, noise, safety around people, safety around other dogs and other animals. So there's lots of things we need to think about with our dogs all the time. And also social needs. Very, very important. So dogs need company and relationships, and not only with other dogs, but animals, other animals as well, and people. They need to feel like they belong, and they need affection and attention. They need to feel a sense of belonging in a group, and of course, they need to be understood. If they're deprived of social needs, just like us, they feel sadness, loneliness, and pain. And they begin to do all sorts of behaviours to gain as much attention as they can. But their health will over time become compromised, and they also become destructive to combat their emotions. And these are actually pickies of all my dogs, as well as family. So up here in the right-hand corner, this is a little boy called Max, who is my sister's grandson. And this is Pixie. And Max and Pixie go on adventures all the time. Belinda sends me pictures and little videos, and it's just beautiful. They just walk through the bush, and they both enjoy that social contact. Also, here's Pixie having great social contact with the chooks and eating the chook food. And of course, down the bottom here, you can see beautiful social contact where the dogs are just sleeping and resting. Graham with the dogs again. So they need also to be able to communicate with each other. And that's really important, so they don't avoid conflict as well as work together. And by now, after all of these slides that we've been watching with Lisbeth, we should know that dogs have very varied ways of communicating, including barking and growling, howling. And thank you to Turid. I'm forever grateful for you teaching us calming signals, and what calming signals really are, what they mean, how they work, and also how we respond to them, which is really important. Another basic need is fulfillment and purpose. Okay, so there might be some people on here that do extreme sports or training or competition. But for me, fulfillment is not about this for the dog. It's usually more about the human. Dogs don't normally do these types of things on a daily basis. And we also find that many dogs are exposed to too much stimulation, no stimulation, or the wrong types of stimulation. Dogs are naturally curious. They're very curious, and they love to do things through their own initiative. When we don't provide fulfillment and purpose to our dogs and are constantly deny them this right, it can lead to things like aggression, reduced learning, increased fear, illness, anxiety, depression, lack of good memories, and learned helplessness. Basically, there's absolutely no positive outcome when we stop our dogs from exploring the world and doing things their way. Sometimes. I'll just put that in there because, of course, we've got to have rules. Of course, there's certain times when we have to ensure our dogs are safe or doing things that they may not want to do. But most of the time, we need to think about allowing our dogs to do things in their own time. And dogs need jobs to do to be fulfilled, physically and mentally. And we can do this simply by allowing them to use their senses. And when we do that, it gives dogs the ability to develop physically, socially, emotionally, and make them feel really important by bringing joy to all aspects of their life. There's nothing more exciting than seeing your dog work something out or find something for you in the bush that you've lost, or find those treats that are hidden around the yard, or exploring, stinky, smelly items that you've put somewhere for them. And all of these things make great memories, and those memories are stored, new memories are made, and enjoyment is given. And most of all, dogs feel that they have a sense of purpose. Food and curiosity is good nutrition for the brain and the body. Providing calm activities that involves all senses is not difficult. We just need to open our mind. There are no rules. And I find it interesting that a lot of people will ask me, well, what do I do? And I just say, well, go and throw a whole lot of junk in the backyard, collect junk. And when we break it down and we look at all the different senses and we include things like the whiskers and the skin and the coat, they feel things too. So when we provide these fulfillment activities for them, we make sure that we're using all those senses. And any dog can do this, old and young, and especially old. They need to always feel like they have a purpose and they're not just washed up because they're old. And of course, choices and decisions. And there's my definitions again. The definition of choice means choosing between two or more things. And definition of decision means the act or need for making up one's mind. And I don't think we do that enough for dogs. We don't allow dogs to make their own decisions. And it's quite interesting to watch. When we allow them to make decisions, they're really good at it. They're actually really good at it. It's when we don't allow them and we constantly control them that they make mistakes. And I think that goes for us as well. So I've just written a little bit here about working, living. So working and living with dogs has taught me to observe them, and has taught me always to ask the question about any dog, whether it be my own or whether it be a dog that I'm working with. I always ask myself, where is that dog in its life at that particular time? And once I know this, I can see what I need to change. Something small can make such a difference to a dog and its life. Stress is one of the biggest issues we see today. It drives the chemicals in the brain, but when there's a lot of stress over a long period of time, the chemicals shift and they're not where they need to be. So by realigning the dog's needs, that picture will change. And when we provide choices and decisions, they learn new things, they're willing to try new things, they build confidence, they sleep better, they behave better, they're much happier, healthier, calmer, and fulfilled. And I have to say, I live with these 5 dogs, and people are always amazed at how I never tell these dogs what to do. They just live a really, really comfortable life. They all get on, we all get on, and we just live at one. And I think anybody can do that if we just try a little bit more. And as like the guru in the dog world, Churud, would say, if we close our mouth and stop talking, then we start to really, really see and hear what's going on with dogs. And my last slide is, I guess some of you will recognise this. It's from our travel overseas to Norway. It's the fjords. And I love this picture. When I look at it, it makes me feel so calm. And I remember how I felt while I was there travelling through the fjords on the boat. And so the mind is like water. When it's turbulent, it's difficult to see. When it's calm, everything becomes so much clearer. Thank you, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. And that's it for me.
Wow. Such a nice talk, Jenny. Let me show first myself, and then now you'll be on screen. And
hello.
A beautiful PowerPoint from our fjords. Oh,
I know. Oh, just beautiful, beautiful. Mm.
This was such a great talk, Jenny. Lovely, really. And the comments, people are so happy. Good morning. There are other people from Australia here as well. A couple of people from Australia.
Is there?
Yeah. Someone is writing, I love your presentation.
They don't say who they are.
Let me see if I can see on Facebook. Now they're disappearing for me. Maybe Janne can, or you have to look through the comments afterwards and you see who they are. Maybe you know them. Let me take a couple of questions. Someone is asking, how do you make your dog drink more water? Apparently, they have a dog that is not drinking enough. Maybe they feel, at least. Do you know anything?
Well, first of all, first of all, I would ask what they're feeding is really important, because some dogs do drink more than others. I remember years ago I had a Kelpie, Kizzy, and I never saw that dog drink water. She did, but I never saw her drink water. But she was getting lots of hydration through her raw food. So if your dog is healthy, if you've had the bloods done and everything checked by a veterinarian, then I wouldn't be too concerned about it. But like I said, it's always important just to do that little trial by measuring how much water is in the water bowl in a 24-hour period, and that'll give you a little bit of an idea about, everyone's different. Everybody's different. So if your dog's healthy, I wouldn't be too concerned.
Yeah, because this is very individual. I've had clients as well who's worried about their dog. But it depends on what did your dog used to drink, and has it changed, really? That's the first thing you have to look at, if anything changed.
Absolutely. And yeah, and also, like I said, think about the water that you're using. I'm not sure about, overseas. I know sometimes I've drunk, out of taps in places I've been, and it's a bit so purified water is much, filtered water is much better. That could be something to look at. Maybe they just don't like the taste of the water.
I can see that on my own dogs. My Italian Greyhound, he drinks a lot less than the Basset.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And the Basset is making a lot of noise when she's drinking.
Yeah, sloppy.
Yes. Okay. I want to talk a little bit more about dogs being social, because I think there's quite a few dogs out there who are lonely. They don't they don't get enough time with other dogs, first of all. How do you feel about that? What's your experience? What do you think?
I absolutely agree. I think, we've taken dogs for all the wrong reasons. We think it would be great to, have a puppy or, and we've not thought long term about what this means. There's this word called empathy. And sometimes I think we as humans, we just lack it. We get caught up in our own world and don't realize, that we go out to work and we have friends and we're on Facebook and we talk to people. And we have that choice, and yet we stick dogs in backyards and they just don't get that social interaction, and they need it. And I've always lived with a lot of dogs. So this is the smallest group of dogs I've ever had. I normally have 7 dogs for some weird reason. And I see, and I often think to myself, sometimes they're all together doing things and sometimes they're not. And they're all different in personality. But yeah, Lisbeth, I think all around the world, when we know that the dog is a pack animal and we know pack means family, we've really done some disjustice to the dog, and it does need to change. And I think it's important for everybody to start educating others and thinking about, getting these dogs out and allowing them to have friends.
Yes, that's too. It is also talking about that a lot. And I usually I say quite a lot to my clients as well, that even going for a walk on leash is better than not going on a walk. You don't have to necessarily go out, find a place or playground and let them play and run and be crazy all the time, but just going for calm walks on leashes. That's also socializing and great training, of course.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I had the joy of Granny May and Douglas. When I got Granny May, the other dogs were older because I lost 4 dogs while I was traveling backwards and forwards to Spain, which was horrific. And so Granny May was a baby and she was hanging out with the oldies. And I decided she needed a friend. And so I got a girlfriend of mine who's in rescue to find me a dog of the same size, strength, that could put up with Granny May. Because if Granny wants to walk through a door, she doesn't open it. She just walks straight through it. She's unbelievable. And it was quite interesting. So Douglas was 8 months when I got him, and Granny was a little bit, half a year older. And they've grown together. And I've watched them as young dogs play hard. Like, I've videoed it, I've slowed it down, I've watched it. You'd think they were killing each other. But, it's really interesting. Over time, it's 5 minutes of play and that's it. And I think this is where we, get it wrong, is we think that taking dogs to an off-leash park or, having them race and tear and chase each other and throw balls and do all that heightened activity, that's being social. And it's not. It's just elevating those arousal hormones in the body. So we need to, understand that dogs don't play for a long period of time, and they much prefer to just hang out with each other like we would at the pub having a beer.
Yes,
that'd be nice.
Yeah, and also that's true. And also going to dog parks doesn't necessarily mean that they even know the other dogs there. So would you hang around with anyone, people that you just met on the street, or would you prefer to go to the pub with your friends?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah,
for sure.
There's a question about harness. I'm just going to answer that person. Someone commented. The first video, if you go in the menu, videos, the very first one is by Else Witz. I posted last week. It's an hour and a half about why you should use the harness instead of a collar. So we're not going to go into that here. Okay, I think I can show the question. Yes. How can you prevent a dog from eating trash on the beach? She does not want to use a muzzle.
Ooh, okay. okay, well, I don't blame her for not wanting to use a muzzle. I wouldn't want to use a muzzle either. And I'm not sure what you mean by trash. So are we talking like paper, rubbish, or are we talking dead fish? But a lot of the time, I think what happens is when we don't allow our dogs to go out and explore, and give them calm things to do, and calm that body down, like the fjords in Norway, just keep it all nice and calm. Then when dogs get out, they're just so hyper and so into anything at all. And if we don't think about the equipment that we're using, if we've got them on a harness and a long lead at the beach, those sorts of things where they're not comfortable, then they'll just tend to go for anything. I find dogs that are very well balanced, homeostasis is good, and they have lots of calm activities to do. They don't go around eating trash. They don't. So I think, again, we need to look at the overall picture of the other things. Why I put that logo up at the beginning of the Great Dane looking like a jigsaw puzzle is because there are so many different parts that we have to look at. We don't just focus in on the dog eating the trash. I would say there's probably a lot more going on there. I hope that helps.
Yes. And someone is commenting as well that trash is generally organic. I guess that depends on where you are and so on, but
I think that means like dead fish type trash, you know, like that type of thing. Yeah. Again,
sorry.
Yeah. And again, too, if you know, I don't worry so much about things like that with my dogs. Not that they do that type of thing, but if they did, because they are so healthy, and that acid pit there that's what it's designed for. That's what it's designed, you know. It's
Because my dogs have found, well, that's not on the beach. That's definitely organic. But I remember once I had 3 basset hounds, and they found moose or elk's head.
Yum.
Huge, and it was so much fun to see how they rolled the head slowly. They were really working together as a team to get that huge moose head back home in the garden. They were not allowed inside on the couch with that moose head, though. and here as well, when I go on the beach here, there's a lot of not a lot, but there are some fish, dead fish, and people have been fishing and so on. And Wilma, she loves rolling around in it, and I'm not scared if they eat it either. I mean, well, that's fish, but in general, like you said, can you please repeat that, Jenny, for us? Because a lot of people are very scared that their dogs will eat things they find, and normally their body is taking care of that.
Absolutely. So you want me to repeat about the acidic gut bit?
Yeah.
Or the
just
yeah.
Yeah.
So their gut is acidic if they're fed correctly, and this is really important to understand. If we're feeding things like kibble, then the pH becomes out of balance because it's not normal. It's not a natural thing for dogs to eat. So I'm talking about when we're feeding a proper, good, raw diet, the gut is acidic. So it's like a hydrochloric, it's like a battery, a car battery acid, I guess. So if you put your hand down in there, you'd probably come out without a hand because it is just designed to break everything down. And you'll see that in the feces. And so when that happens, and also, we won't get into it here, but I'm very passionate about chemical overload in the body. I think we're vaccinating too much. We're worming using chemicals for worming and flea and all those things. And they compromise the body, and they compromise the gut and the brain. And so that creates problems. Yeah.
Okay. There's a few very good and interesting questions, Jenny. Do you still have time or
Yeah, fine. I'm fine.
Are you still awake?
I'm off to work. I've got to, I'll do the chooks and go to work. I'm fine.
Okay. So I don't know if you can you see that on the screen?
Yeah.
My Australian cattle dog has a male ACD. I'm not sure what that's the abbreviation.
Australian cattle dog.
Okay.
Yeah. So my Australian cattle dog has a male Australian cattle dog and a Rhodesian Ridgeback at home, and 2 other dogs that she tolerates or is friendly with that belongs to my friend. Is it important that they have a large social circle, or is small okay? Oh, wow. Okay. They can have as large as they like.
I knew you would love it.
Yeah. They can have as large as they like. It's really up to them. We must provide our dogs with choices. So, some dogs, they're like people. I mean, I meet people and I just don't want to be around them. And I meet other people and I can't get enough of them. And some dogs like small groups and some dogs like big groups. So if your doggies like to hang out with large socials of groups, and I'm talking about hanging out and sniffing and lying around in the sun, I'm not talking about racing and tearing around parks, chasing and pummeling each other. That is not good socialization. But just hanging out, think of yourself with a friend, having a cup of tea or a beer, sitting in the sun and chatting about life in general. I think we need to understand what socializing means.
Yeah.
It's not chasing balls in the park. Mm-hmm.
And also, they're so different. My collie is now, that I showed in my previous PowerPoint, is living with my ex-husband because the collie, he appreciates 1 or 2 other dogs. But living in a household with several dogs and cats, that was just too much for him. So some dogs are okay with having 1 or 2 other good friends. And 1 friend is better than having no friends.
Absolutely. Yeah, they're all very different. Very, very different.
Next question. My Swiss Shepherd missed her socialization stage, and taking her for a walk is a nightmare. She barks like mad and wants to go for every other dog. She won't bite them, but she pulls and goes mad. She has been for obedience training.
Great question, Facebook user. Okay, so she missed a socialization stage. Well, I always look at it like I take in rescue dogs. I've never gone out and got myself a puppy, so I don't know their history. So that's okay. We can deal with that. So the first thing is, like I talked about a little bit about stress and socialization, is that if we have a dog that's not, I don't know how old this dog is either, or the background of this dog. So there's a huge picture here that I don't know. And I would, like to observe the dog. However, just from the information you've given me, a few little tips that I could give you is, 1, we need to look at the stress levels in the dog. So that's looking at absolutely everything from diet, health, compromised immune system, etc. But also, if your dog behaves like that when you go out walking, we need to look at equipment. Is your dog in pain? And I think we forget that when we put ill-fitting equipment on your dog, that creates pain, and pain creates frustration and aggression, or reactiveness, as I like to call it. I don't really use that word aggression. I don't know why I said that. And so we need to then take our dog away from that situation, move them away. Like I said in that slide, if you can't move what it is that's upsetting the dog, move the dog from the situation. So my advice would be to you, go to quiet areas, parks, for example, that are nice and quiet, where there's not a lot of movement around. Have your dog on a good fitting harness and a very long lead. So I would be talking like a 10-meter lead. I would be doing nice treat searches, and we know that sitting is a calming signal. So go and get yourself a coffee and plonk yourself down on the grass somewhere that's beautiful and quiet, and just let your dog relax and bring those arousal hormones down. And then we slowly start to work with, taking it up a notch. Don't put your dog in situations where it's behaving like that, because those arousal levels will keep going. And basically what we're doing is teaching our dog to do it.
Mm-hmm. And they get very good at doing it when they do it every day.
Very good at doing it. Yeah. I hope that helped.
Someone is just one last question, please. I have 3 dogs, but the pit bull does not like to play with the other ones. Is it normal in a dog, or probably there is something else wrong that I need to check on him?
Yeah. Okay. So again, very, very difficult. And I have a golden rule that I don't answer questions over phone calls. I like to observe the dog, because Turid has this famous saying, dogs don't lie, and they don't. And a lot of the time, it's very difficult for me to be able to answer a question because I'm not looking. So the things that I would advise to you on here, if I could, dogs love to hang out with dogs. They really do. And if they don't, if it might be just hanging out with one dog, like Lisbeth said, or it could be hanging out with a dozen. If they don't, then we have a problem that we need to address, and that could be usually caused through stress. It could be caused through pain. I don't know how old this dog is that you're talking about. I don't know its history at all. It could be quite fearful. How are the other dogs playing? How are the humans interacting with the dogs when they are with one another? Are they missing something? Because dogs communicate all different ways. And when we miss signs and signals, a lot of the time humans can reprimand dogs when they shouldn't be, simply when they're communicating. So you could be missing something. I would suggest that you, I don't know, where are you in the world, this person? Do they say?
She needs to answer. It's a little
bit. Yeah, so probably the thing would be to have a look on the PDTE, the Pet Dog Trainers of Europe website, and you could look up a trainer there, because you want to find somebody that understands canine behaviour. It's very, very important. It's not something easy that I can just fix over here, over, a webinar. Yeah.
That was Orlando. I think she's from Orlando, the US, Florida.
Okay. Yeah, go on the PDTE web page and have a look on there, and see if you can find someone. Otherwise, I mean, Lisbeth, or you can contact somebody, I guess, and do some sort of a Zoom consult, because it's a very serious problem, and doggies do get on with other dogs, and when they don't, we need to look at what we're doing as well.
Yeah. And that was a very good last question. I think we will stop the questions now, because
sure.
That is exactly why your presentation today is so important, because we need to understand what is basic needs and normal behavior in dogs. What is normal behavior? Because only when we know what is normal, then we can start to find out what is not normal and help the dog.
Mm-hmm.
And we know this. I thought I knew it. I thought I knew it before I met Turid and read her book.
Lisbeth, look, you can't see here on my screen, but all my doggies are down there in, they've all been cremated. And I've had 22 dogs, 5 of them, that's including the 5, so 17 have passed on. And, I'm ashamed, but also I always say, when I run a class, that I've done some terrible things to dogs in the past, and simply because I thought that the experts knew what they were doing. And someone said in one of your talks earlier about listening to your intuition, your sixth sense. And I don't think that we don't trust it. And a lot of the time we see trainers doing things to dogs and we think, well, they know what they're doing, and so it must be okay. But we have to understand that these are living, feeling, breathing creatures. And it's really, really important that we ask the question all the time, how would I feel if that were me and it was being done to me? Dogs don't want to be controlled. They don't want to be controlled. They just want to live and exist and spend time with you. And it's really not that hard. And when you cut out all the oohs and the ahs and the yanks and the pulls and the no's and the get on your bed and do this and do that, it removes so much stress from your own life. It's so easy. It's so easy to live with dogs. And I can spend a whole day here at home working and not speak once to my dogs.
Yeah.
And they're fine.
I have to tell you this very short story. When I first met Turid in 2003, this is Turid Rugås we're talking about, the author of On Talking Terms with Dogs. I went to a 1-week course with her and Anna Lill in 2003. And I said, because I had 2 dogs and I was working as a teacher, and I said to Turid, I'm worried about my dogs because they're home alone for 4 to 5 hours every day. And then Turid looked at me and she said, Lisbeth, did you ever think about that they might just be happy you're out because you're talking all the time. So
yeah, peace and quiet. Yep. People tend to tell their dogs everything. Going to do the washing. I'm going to cook this. I'm going to do that. I'm gonna. And dogs are like, oh man. And the other thing I think that is really important to say there is that I live in the middle of the bush. So I live on in the mountain, and I live with a lot of wildlife, and it's quite interesting. So I can sit outside with my dogs when they're doing a treat search or something, and it's so quiet, and I hear the birds and all the noises around me. And it's really important for dogs to be able to live in quiet because they're designed to be able to hear threats, and smell things around them. So when you're constantly going at them and just nagging, they can't do what they would naturally do, which is be able to listen out for things that they need to make sure that they're safe.
Oh, I love having this talk with you, and I'm sure I will definitely ask you, Jenny, if you want to come and be on one of the Sundays that we do our Facebook lives sometime during if you're up for getting up really early again.
I'm fine. I'm absolutely fine. I love doing it, and if I can help one dog and one person, then that makes it all worthwhile. Does that mean I have to pick another topic?
We can talk about anything, I think, when it comes to dogs. And people are really appreciating your talk here as well. So,
please.
Do you have any activities going on? Do you offer any classes? Do you have any webinars? I'm going to write the contact information for Jenny in the comments below afterwards.
Yeah. Actually, I'm glad you said that, because during your talk, Lisbeth, you talked about pregnancy and babies. Now, I have a few Facebook pages. So we have the Complete Pet Company Facebook page and Complete Canine Communication Facebook page, and of course PDT Australia as well. But I have been doing some interviews. Just recently I did one with the Smiling Leash girls, and also Julia, who works for me, and she has 2 little dogs, Tinker and Taylor, and she was pregnant, or was pregnant, now has a baby, Annika. And what she did was she prepared the dogs for this pregnancy. So for 7 months or so, she prepared the doggies for this pregnancy. And she documented it, and we did a webinar on it of her telling us how she prepared the dogs. And then we came back and did another webinar on bringing the baby home, what she'd observed, what she'd, done. And it's absolutely brilliant. So it's actually on the Complete Pet Company's Facebook page, and you can go in and watch that. So yes, I do interviews, and I'll be doing more interviews with people around the world as well as in Australia. I run classes, the Complete Dog, Simply Puppies, which I love because it's, they're not training classes. We do some great things there. So there's lots of footage on my Facebook pages. And I do talks and travel a bit when I can.
So get in touch with Jenny. She is bringing Norman is coming. They are good travel companions, even though she doesn't like flying.
It's really ridiculous. I'm so attached to this mouse. I would be devastated. Seriously, I would be devastated if anything had happened to him. He's been with me for so long, and I sometimes look at myself. People must think that's weird, but yeah, I'm very attached to Norman. He's real. I'm
going to share that Facebook page. I'm going to share all this contact information and your Facebook page. A lot more information from Jenny there, and I think we're done for tonight. It's 10:15 here in Norway, so
wow,
5:45 your time or something. Tomorrow, actually, you're on Saturday now.
No, Friday. Because you're Thursday night. Yeah. So Friday morning. My days.
I thought it was Friday. Now I'm all confused about my own day. So it's Thursday here. It's already Friday. So you're ahead of us.
It happens, Lisbeth. It happens.
Okay. Well, very much, Jenny.
Thank you.
I will hide you from the screen. Please don't hang up on me. I'm just going to give some practical information, and then we can talk after I've finished the live.
No worries.
Thank you. Bye,
everyone. Bye.
Bye. Okay, so that was such a nice talk as always with Jenny, and I will post all her contact information. Also, at the end of the week, so on Saturday or Sunday, I will send you all an email with contact information and relevant links for all our presenters this week. So tomorrow we have the Smiling Leash team, 3 lovely ladies that can help you answer questions about how you can teach a dog to walk on a smiley leash, long leash. And then Karen Webb is attending. She's coming from, she's in England. She's going to have a little chat about the PDTE, Pet Dog Trainers of Europe. So we still have 2 more days, tomorrow and Saturday, because we added 1 more day. Okay, so I'll see you tomorrow at 7 Norwegian time. Thank you. Bye.